you feel so inclined to share this with someone that you care about, and if you think that this could help them through their dark night of the soul or through whatever it is that they're going through, and they feel alone and scared and afraid, and they're asking you a million questions as to, what do I do? Where do I go? What am I supposed to? Please share this information with them if you think that it could help them or benefit them in any way, as we're all on the same path. And that is the path that leads to our relationship with God. We have help through the veil on the other side. We have so much more help than we even know. And so a big part of, I think, for me, the big part of being on this earth is to learn how to fight these spiritual battles that we find ourselves in, to learn how to get good tools to help us navigate and how to fight these battles, but also to learn how to develop trust with our Creator and our Maker and our Mentor. The ones who love us the most are the ones who are going to guide us back in towards ourselves, back home to the kingdom which is within. Okay. Hey, welcome everybody to Great Life, Greater Impact. We're so excited to have you here. And for those of you who are watching the replay, check out the description below this video for lots and lots of links to other resources that you might find useful and helpful. Today, we're going to be talking about spiritual awakening through self-mastery. And I'm excited about this topic because I've been actually, we did a whole entire year of hour-long classes every single Tuesday, all about spiritual awakening 2 or 3 years ago. It was like back in 2021. And that was our entire focus for the whole year, was on awakening the spirit and maturing in your level of spirituality so that you can be more in alignment with truth, more aware of who you are and who you are to God. And I just found that was one of the most amazing growing years for me, was when we studied that stuff. So today is kind of my presentation for today is going to be sort of a culmination of some of my most favorite classes that I've taught over the years on spiritual awakening. And so we're going to dive into that in just a little bit. Also, just a side note, I do a deep dive. It's an extended version of this class. Every single Tuesday, an hour after this class is complete, we go over to greatlifegreaterimpact.com, get ourselves registered for those classes, and then I do group healing sessions where we take what we learned today in this free session and we go a little bit deeper on a more personal level so that you can kind of dig out all the gunk out of the nooks and crannies of your soul and your body and your mind and your spirit. So if that's something that sounds interesting to you, go get yourself registered, and you can figure out how to do that by going to greatlifegreaterimpact.com. All right. Michael from Idaho has volunteered to kick us off with a prayer this morning. So I'm going to turn the time to you. Go ahead, Mike.
My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character which stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen.
Wow. Amen, amen, and amen. Thank you for that.
If you don't know, that is the 7-step prayer of AA.
Wow. I need to go through AA just so I can learn all the learnings that you've gotten from that. Like going through that program, because I've watched you go through that program. Going through that program has really, I've seen such a refinement in you and such a up-leveling and such a higher level of self-mastery in you than I've ever seen before. So thank you for sharing that.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks for being here, everybody. We're just going to jump right in because this might be a little bit longer. There's a lot of information, really, really great information in this class today, but I don't want it to I am going to share my screen, do a small presentation. I don't want it to inhibit you from participating or commenting or adding some value where you see to add value. So don't hesitate. Please feel free. And just all you have to do is type something into the chat or unmute yourself and just chime in. You're always welcome to do that. And as you know, I love it when you guys do. All right, so let me pull up my screen share. There we go. All right. Welcome, everybody. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome to Great Life, Greater Impact. As you know, we talked about the topic for today is spiritual awakening through self-mastery. Okay, so to start off with, I think that the most important work that any of us will ever do on this planet is the work of learning to study ourselves, learning to understand ourselves on a greater level, and manifest what we came here to do. And not just what we came here to do, but who we came here to be. And I honestly think that there isn't anything more important than that work, than the work of self-mastery and spiritual awakening. So on the earth right now, I think we have this huge capacity for tremendous destruction, while it's an irony that at the same time we have this equal capacity for transcendent rebirth into a new way of living and behaving. And so that's where I want to focus on today. So the first question that I want to ask you guys, and I want you to think about it, you can type stuff into the chat if you have ideas or thoughts or answers to these questions. But the first question is, why are you here? Why did you incarnate into a physical body and come all the way to this earth, into this lower density, heavy dimension? Why did you do that? And I don't even need to get into the debate of how many times you've done that. But I just want you to be thinking and pondering on what is the main purpose for you being here. And I'll share a little bit of some of my insights as I've asked this question to my own self, is as I look over the theme of my life over the past 50 years. I believe that one of the main themes that comes up over and over and over in my life for learning and growth here has been non-limited unconditional love. I've been presented with opportunities to find my way to non-limited unconditional love, and I believe that that's a theme for me. I believe it's one of the main things that I came here specifically to learn how to manifest through hardship and struggle. So why are you here? What are you learning? What are you overcoming? What are the patterns and themes in your physical mortal life? And what things did you bring with you to overcome or that you've already learned? Just some good thoughts. Okay, so today I'm going to present to you, this is kind of accumulation of a course that I did. It was a year-long course on spiritual awakening. So I want to share I kind of chiseled this down, 8 basic stages to a spiritual awakening, the process of coming to know yourself in the deepest ways. And I think that, so if we want to define the term, what spiritual awakening actually is, I personally believe that spiritual awakening is the pursuit of truth, the pursuit of absolute truth as it applies to you in your life. And the way that you interpret truth might be very different than the way someone else interprets truth, and that's okay. That's totally okay. But I believe that that is the epitome of what spiritual awakening actually is. It's coming to know yourself in the deepest ways while in the pursuit of truth. Okay, so phase number 1 of the 8 different phases that we're going to talk about today is study. This is the study phase. And I think this is a really important phase. Some people overlook it. Some people don't give it as much credibility as I think that it deserves. But the first one of these levels is the study of spiritual science. And so to me, that looks like trying to gain understanding for how the spirit world works, learning about spiritual things, spiritual warfare, learning about various spiritual practices from many vantage points, cultures, teachers, and it's being willing to apply what you've learned. So for me personally, I took it upon myself to study books, Holy Writ, ancient writings, scriptures. I've always been a truth seeker. It's just been something that I've always had an interest in my life. And so this study phase is not just about scientific research. It's not just about reading your scriptures and saying your prayers. It's really seeking for truth from other vantage points and other perspectives so that you can lay the groundwork so that you have some sort of context in which then God and your guides and angels and those who walk with you through the spirit world have context that they can use in order to help you on your path. The second stage, I believe, in spiritual awakening is the observation stage. And this is kind of a doozy. There's a lot of information here. So it's going to take me a little bit to get through it all. But observation stage. So this is the stage in your progression, in your life, in your spiritual maturity, where you're becoming a good, humble observer of things, such as yourself. You're learning to observe yourself, your thoughts, your reactions, your patterns, your beliefs, even the world around you, that which you have created. And the life that you experience today is definitely one of your own creations. So it's the observation phase of spiritual awakening is really just learning to be introspective. It's learning to look at yourself and kind of ask those questions. I wonder why I did that. I wonder what that's about. It's going into a state of wonder. So it's observing your thoughts, your feelings, your choices, your patterns, the patterns that show up in your life. Why do I keep manifesting this over and over and over? When you do this, when you start becoming more observant and observational about not just the world around you, like nature and stuff like that, or other people, but really becoming the observer of your own life, your own inner experience. When you start to get really good at that, what that will do is it'll help to open up your mind to new paradigms. And that's where we learn, is when we're willing to accept and receive new paradigms. So this can really help us to stay in a state of sincerity and truth, because ultimately that's what we're looking for. If we're on an ascension or a spiritual learning path, we're seeking truth. If you want to seek truth, there has to be a high level of sincerity about you. Ultimately, we're all seeking truth. And that's, I think, this is the big takeaway that I hope that if there's only one thing you get from this presentation today, I hope that it's this, is that ultimately, I think all of us are just seeking truth. So in order for that to happen, we have to be vigilant and we have to be careful about not allowing ourselves to go into a place of pride or ego. So as soon as you begin to inflate your ego and think that you're more advanced than somebody, or that you're better than somebody, or that you know more than somebody else, now you've moved way away from truth because you've moved out of sincerity. And so now you have less access to truth than you thought you did in the beginning. So we have to be really careful and vigilant about keeping the ego in check. In fact, sometimes if our ego gets too out of control, what can happen is it can put us in a backwards trajectory on our spiritual path. And then what will happen is you'll require some kind of a jolt or some kind of an extreme traumatic experience to wake you up again and put you back on that spiritual path. The spiritual path, the spiritually awakened path, typically only unfolds, well, it unfolds the best when you're in a state of humility and presence and sincerity. So then, if we get too much in the inflated ego, then it takes us out of truth. It can put us on a backward path, and then we can't really align with truth anymore at that point. So it's important that we stay humble and sincere. And we can do this the best when we're living an authentic life. I highly recommend go back a couple of maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago. We did 2 classes back to back on one of them was called Live Your Dream Life in Authenticity. And the other one was called Getting to the Root of Authenticity. If you're struggling with authenticity, you're struggling to get out of your ego and out of pride, and pride can go in both ways. Pride can be, I'm better than someone, or pride can also be, I'm a worthless piece of crap and I'm not enough. Okay, so if you're struggling with those things, it's because you're living inauthentically. So I recommend those 2 videos. You can go back and watch the replays of those on the YouTube channel. Okay. So something that we can do to really help us in this phase of observation, this second phase of spiritual awakening, is to go within. If you guys have taken any of my classes or done any of my group healing sessions or worked with me one-on-one in mentoring, you know that I don't do any work with anybody until I myself go within and until I have taken you through a process where you go within, tap in, connect with your higher self. So find ways. If you have not learned this from me and you want to learn it from somewhere else, that's fine too. But find a way to learn to go within and focus on the inner world rather than the world outside of you. Learn to focus on that inner center channel that's within you, where all of the chakras align. Learn to direct the flow of energy up through that center channel. And as that energy flows upward, the ability to communicate through the veil will begin to open up. That's typically what happens to people. And you'll notice too that as that veil thins and opens up, if you're conscious and awake and receptive, you'll get very good communication through the veil with divine beings, including God. Or if you are a follower of Jesus Christ, you'll be able to communicate directly with these beings, even beings who are just benevolent beings who are looking out for you through the veil, who walk with you in this earth life. You'll find that as you learn to go within and go into the inner stillness and learn to become centered, that ability for you to receive wisdom and guidance for your highest good increases. So during this phase, it's important to let God guide you. It's important to let the spirit realm, especially these benevolent beings that are around you, that who have assignment from God to mentor you. It's important that you become familiar with them and become familiar with the voice of God so that you can have the courage to follow through with the things that you receive. Because often when you're on a spiritual path, you learn to go within, you learn to hear the voice of God and that stillness within you. You're going to get asked to do hard things that don't make sense to the rest of the world. And so you're going to need to be able to have the courage to follow through with what you get directly from God. Okay. Phase number 3 is the catalyst phase. This is the stage. I like to call it the catalyst phase. It's when you start to fall into stages in your life where you're just getting by, or you're really stressed out, or the challenges of life in the physical external world, they can cause you to stagnate spiritually because you get distracted and you stop focusing on your inner identity and inner authority, and you start focusing on everything outside of you for your learning. So what will happen, and this happens naturally, you don't even have to force it, it'll just happen, is that your higher self or your soul will say, snap out of it. It's like, when you fall asleep or you pass out because of unawareness or something, and you're laying there in a passed out state, your higher self's going to come and smack you across the face and give you a good jolt. This is what I call the catalyst phase. It's when challenges in your life appear. And this is when this happens, a person can almost assuredly expect to be awakened by some kind of a shock in their life to put them back on their spiritual path. So sometimes these shocks or these catalysts can show up as a very difficult life experience, or maybe even the accumulation of like 20 years of difficult life experience or difficult patterns that you've been unconscious to. So it can show up in many different forms, but um, just know that this phase is here to help you. It's here to help you recommit to the main purpose or the main focus of your life, which for me, the main focus of my life, I think my main theme for this lifetime has always been learning how to love, learning how to be loved, learning how to return to love, regardless of how love is being shown to me in my life. So you kind of have to look at what does that look like for you? What is the catalyst here to do for you? What is it reminding you of? How is your higher self smacking you across the face? What is the jolt doing to help you recenter and refocus and slow down? I think the catalyst phase is an opportunity when we go through trauma, we go through loss, or maybe a near-death experience, or a breakup with a loved one, or maybe you've connected with a twin flame and then they departed, or there's chaos of some kind in your life. When something happens to you that's out of your control and it impacts you tremendously, spiritual awakening usually comes in the form of some kind of chaos. And so it's good in those times, as always, we know that spiritual awakening is about seeking truth. So it's good to go back and observe your thoughts and feel your feelings and go within, find your way back to a humble place, a place of sincerity. It's good to analyze your beliefs and your thinking. If you're going about life and you think that something outside of you holds the key to what you feel on the inside, in order to have a feeling of wholeness or happiness or satisfaction or something like that, and you're expecting that life is going to gift you those things, or that somebody outside is going to gift you those things, this is what the catalyst phase is all about. This is what it's here for. It's to remind you to go within and realize that the answers are inside of you. And they're not it's not, you're not supposed to find wholeness in anything outside of you. Okay. The fourth phase. So once you come through the catalyst phase, maybe a trauma or a drama or something horrible happened to you, then what's going to happen typically is you'll start to go through a phase of isolation and self-discovery. Some people would call this the dark night of the soul. So when you have come through a trauma or a drama or some kind of a jolt or some kind of a catalyst to get you to go within, to get you thinking. Oh, I was going to share with you the story. So when my oldest daughter, Jessica, was diagnosed with cancer when she was 14, and it was during a time in my life as a mom, as a wife, as a business owner, like I was just in a really busy phase of my life, kind of living my life in coping mode on autopilot and just trying to brute force my way through the day. And then all of a sudden, our whole world collapsed. Like every appliance in our house died. Our cars broke down. The basement flooded. We found terrible black mold in the basement. We had to completely bring in like a hazmat crew to deconstruct the basement. My daughter got sick with cancer. It was terrible. It was a terrible time in our life. And this was definitely a catalyst. But during all of that chaos, I found myself sitting in the hospital receiving this terrible news. And all of a sudden, as I'm receiving this terrible news about my daughter, wondering whether or not she's going to live through this experience, it's interesting how when you're jolted into a difficult phase of life like that, like the catalyst, the jolt literally does push you inward. It makes you go, woo, 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 woo. Everything slows down. I remember coming home from the hospital that day that we received that news, and we had to pick some things up at the store. And I remember just being so deep inside myself that I could barely carry on a conversation with somebody in the outside world. Someone came up to me at the store and they wanted to have superficial, I don't know, just chat with me about the weather. And I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And then walking through the store, I saw a mother and her daughter arguing over what color of underwear to buy. And I just wanted to shake them and go, do you not see this isn't important? This is not important. Life and death is at stake here, because that's how I was feeling about it. So anyways, Dark Night of the Soul. This is the phase, the catalyst. I mean, after the catalyst, where we go through, we go within, we turn inward, we start self-reflecting a little bit, and it almost forces us to go within. This is the time where you're observing your thoughts and your responses to trauma. This is a time where you may feel lonely and isolated. This alone phase is the perfect time to develop your relationship with God, even more than you had before. And so it's really, this is a good time when if you find yourself in the dark night of the soul, this is a really, really good time to learn to listen, learn to trust the voice of God, practice it, hone it. During this phase, you're going to quickly learn that it becomes less and less effective to ask other people outside of yourself for the answers. This phase is strictly for you and for God to get to know one another. It's for you to develop trust in your maker. It's for you to experience the liberation from needing anything outside of you to complete you. It's okay to let go. Sometimes life is going to force you to have to let go, even though you don't want to let go. Maybe it comes in the form of the loss of a loved one or a relationship or money or a career or something that you had attached your identity to. Even the loss of religion can be a very isolating experience to have to go through, but this is a good opportunity. This is the perfect time for you to then learn to hear the voice of God, to develop that trust and to experience the liberation from needing anything outside of you to complete you. It's okay to allow friends to give you good advice. It's okay to listen to that, and it's okay to have that support. But ultimately, this is the time in your spiritual awakening or your maturity. This is the time where you need to be alone with heaven. You need to get comfortable with being alone with God. This is your time in the wilderness, and it's okay to surrender to that. So I want to talk a little bit more deeply about this isolation phase. So as you're going through the dark night of the soul, one of the first things that you're going to notice in this paradigm or this phase is there's going to be a paradigm breakdown. You're going to start looking at the world from a very different vantage point. So this is the place in your life where belief systems are being challenged because you've gone from living in a 3D world on autopilot to stepping out of the matrix and into maybe a 4D world or a terrestrial paradigm. So for those of you who have LDS background, it would be like going from a telestial way of looking at things to a terrestrial way of looking at things, if that makes any sense. So it's like, for those of you who are into New Age, it would be like going from 3D to 4D and to 5D, if that makes sense to you guys. So this is where you start to realize that nothing is really as it seemed. So some people feel so mad about this phase that they feel like, I have been lied to in my religion, in my culture, in my family, in my upraising, the government, all these systems on the planet. They've all lied to me, and I'm really mad about it. But just know that this is an important integral piece to the puzzle. It's supposed to happen this way, where your paradigms start to break down, because you're being invited to see things from a very different vantage point or a different perspective. But this is where you start to realize that nothing is as it seems. You see the truth for what it really is, and you become more aware of 3D, lower level emotions, faulty belief systems, and unhealthy thought patterns, and even emotional patterns. This is like the wake up phase, where you feel like you've literally awakened from slumber. So the next part of the dark night of the soul, or this isolation phase, as we call it, is personal expansion and sovereignty. Okay, this is where you become the observer in your life. Again, we step back into that observation mode. It's so helpful to witness your thoughts and your emotions and your beliefs and to just step back and be the witness of things with a new lens. So you're witnessing without believing or mindlessly buying into illusion or programming or traditions or what culture says you have to do, what religion says you have to do. It's stepping outside of the box. It's stepping outside of groupthink. And you're starting to gain spiritual sovereignty and autonomy. And it's in this phase where you no longer accept people manipulating you or controlling you or gaslighting you, no matter who it doesn't matter who they are. This is a point in your progression, this isolation and discovery phase, where you're going to start to develop more autonomy and sovereignty through personal reflection. Okay. Another aspect of the dark night of the soul is where, after you've taken that time to do some observing of your thoughts and observing and just witnessing and watching and learning and going within and trusting in God, then your mind can now expand. And so this is a time of introspection. It's where you start going wherever your soul is leading you to go rather than where people are telling you to go. You love learning and you question everything. You go down the rabbit holes of discovery as you dive deeper into the mysteries of the universe because you want to expand your consciousness and you want deeper truth. You don't want to be lied to anymore. You don't want to depend on other people's vantage point or other people's truths or what other people think truth is. You're starting to learn to get it from within. You're breaking through those mind prisons that were put in place to keep you under control and to hide the truth. So this is an important phase of discovery, and a lot of people are scared to go there because they don't want to be kicked out of culture, and they don't want to be kicked out of family groups, and they don't want to be kicked out of the places where they felt belonging. It takes a lot of courage to step outside of boxes and boats and be true to the truth that lives inside your soul. So you're going to need to muster up a lot of courage and faith during these phases. The next part or the next aspect of the dark night of the soul is where you have identity issues. So I know a lot of people who are coming out of relationships and religion and career and letting go of their political way of thinking, and just they're shedding a lot of old paradigms and beliefs. And it's hard to do this because most of the time, this stuff is governed by authoritarians who want you to wrap these things up in your identity or wrap your identity up in them. And it's, I think, a genius way to manipulate and control people. You think about religious organizations and cultural organizations and authoritarian groups like the elites on the planet who are using media and movies and just anything that can be put in front of us on our telephone screens and the movie screens. They're doing that because they're trying to condition you. They're doing that because they're trying to program you. They're doing it because they want you to wrap your identity up in these things and believe that what you're witnessing is actually true. And so what happens is when you start to challenge the perceptions and the beliefs and the paradigms, your identity will get challenged. I hear a lot of people who are going through this phase who say things like, I don't know where to go, and I don't know what to do, and I don't know who I am. And that can be a really, really scary place to dwell. So this is the stage where the old ego self dies and it falls away, and a new self is realized or reconstructed. Maybe not even reconstructed. It's just more about the emerging of your true, authentic, higher self. So what you once knew yourself to be is now changed. and you see yourself for who you really are. Your perceived identity was once protected by your ego. Who you are is what you cling to, or who you are is what you do. But this was never really the real you. And so if any of these things are passing away, you can find yourself actually feeling like you're getting destroyed in the process. So lots of people think that they are their relationship, that without this relationship, without this love interest in my life, I don't know who I am. Without this religious conditioning or the belief patterns or the doctrine or the dogma or whatever it might be, I don't know who I am without it. You may even feel that way about your career and your political party and your upbringing and the fixed mental positions. So this is a stage to be aware of. Lots of people go through it and they feel so lost and alone, and they feel like they don't know who they are anymore. And depending on how severe of an aspect of the dark night of the soul this is for you, it can be a real challenge. So as the old ego falls away, you start to become aware of who you are and what you are. The dark night of the soul is painful and it's grueling, and it can be scary because you feel like you're dying. But the soul is just purging parts of you that really aren't you. And it hurts because you don't want to let go. And it's hard to let go. It's hard to let go of programs. It's hard to let go of people. It's hard to let go of expectations. And it's hard to let go of what you thought should be, what the way that you thought life should be. It's hard to let that stuff go. But when you surrender and choose to let it go, that's when the suffering ends. So you're going to be invited to let go of anything that is out of alignment with your soul's highest path. So the old identity is passing away in order that you might be invited to look past the trauma and the self-worth, the low self-worth or the self-doubt. And then the new identity is emerging, and you're going to be invited to let go of anything, everything that is out of alignment with that truth. Okay. Wow, good stuff here. Dark night of the soul is a very important step. Try not to take it for granted. I thought this quote was really profound. So spiritual awakening, waking up, is the dying of the illusions of what you have been conditioned to believe that you are. It's the dying of the illusions. And sometimes it's hard to let go, but when you do, the suffering ends. Okay, moving on. Phase number 5. This is a really cool phase because this is where you start to apply what you've learned. It's where you rise from the ashes. It's like the mighty phoenix. It's where you start to stand back up again in the truth of who you are, and you start to apply the learning that came as you went through that dark night of the soul. And you're applying knowledge too that's coming to you from divine sources as you're developing that relationship with heaven through the veil. You're going to also apply a lot of the book learning and the studying that you did in phase 1, where you were starting to learn through just the reading of other people's experiences and their words and prophetic messages. So this is where it kind of all comes together, and you start to apply that knowledge into a series of practices where the learning becomes a part of you as a being. So I put a list together of different things that we can do. So here's kind of a good 7-step, and there's more too, but I tried to narrow it down a little bit. But number 1, it's important that we set aside time in our busy lives to reconnect to that inner space inside of you and allow that inner vision of your life to unfold intuitively. It's really important that we take the time for this, and you're going to have to establish a daily practice. But even if all you can do is wake up 15 minutes earlier or set your alarm clock so that you can lay in bed for 15 minutes and just ponder and pray for a little bit and before you go on with your day. Number 2, it's important that we train ourselves to follow intuitive impulses and knowings. It's vital that we learn how to act on these things. This is how you apply your learning. So most of the time, you won't get the context for why you're being guided to do something or why you're being guided to learn something. You won't get the context text for that until you step in and apply the learning, because learning comes through experience. So we have to train ourselves to follow through on the intuitions and the impulses that you get through the spirit. And there's only one way to know whether or not you're doing it right, and that is to just do it. Just do it. And then you check in to see, what are the fruits? Are the fruits good? Did they cause me to be more loving and full of gratitude? And did it help someone or serve someone? So you look at the fruits. That's how you can kind of determine whether or not it was a good fruit for you. Number 3, set aside time for stillness in your life. I cannot overemphasize how important I think this step is, to really just get centered, go within, sit in the stillness of who you are. You know, some people do what's called active meditation, where they're being taken on a journey and they're witnessing, visual landscapes, and they're writing things down in the journal. And that's awesome. I mean, that's purposeful. But there's also another type of meditation that you can do where it's just sitting in the stillness of your soul, and you're not doing anything and you're not thinking anything, and you're just being present. You're feeling into the essence of what it feels like to be in your body and what it feels like to just be. And there is no doing, there is no thinking, there is no, like, it's a powerful experience. And the more you can train yourself to just be in the stillness, the more clarity you're going to have when you do finally start to receive those downloads. So set aside time for that. Set aside time for deeper levels of awareness. That's number 4. Become more conscious by first becoming more aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Do you ever, I used to do this all the time. I don't do it as much anymore, but I used to, walking past the kitchen, just mindlessly going into the pantry, grabbing a bag of chips and munching mindlessly without even thinking about what I'm doing, rather than stopping myself and saying, hey, why am I doing this? What am I really hungry for? What am I trying to avoid? So becoming conscious by first becoming more aware of what you're doing and why you're doing it. Awareness also has to do with becoming aware of how you've opted to manifest things into your daily reality. So something that can really help you increase your level of awareness is when you go to bed at night, to just lay down and walk backwards through your day and observe yourself walking backwards through your day and analyzing how the day went and how did it unfold, and noticing what were your reactions, what was your thinking, what were your behaviors, what were the feelings and moods and emotions in all of that, how were you manifesting? And just take the time to be aware of, how did you create the day into a reality? Okay, number 5. This is one of my favorite steps of spiritual ascension or mastery, is to observe yourself, to observe your thoughts, observe the content of everything that you think, observe the emotions and the feelings that come with that. We have a message. Lisa says, practices with stillness and breath work has been some of the most profound healing for me. Maybe because it brings us back to peace. It brings me home. Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Lisa. I really appreciate that. Yeah, being in that stillness and having a daily practice where you can really develop this. Again, it's not a waste of your time. It's probably the most important work that you'll ever do, is to become aware. So number 5, set aside time for observation, observing your thoughts, your emotions, your behaviors, your patterns, both the healthy and the unhealthy patterns. Why did I do that? What was that about? I wonder why I'm feeling this way right now. What does that remind me of? Like asking yourself really good, penetrating questions to see if you can get to the root of why you are choosing to manifest the way that you are. Set aside time to also observe it out in nature. This is one of my favorite places to observe the world around me, is to observe the beauty of nature. We can go into that a little bit more in a bit. Observing the patterns of your life. I want to talk a little bit about this a little more in depth. So studying the patterns. I think this is a really important thing that sometimes we forget that we can do, but studying patterns, these are like, when I'm talking about patterns, I'm talking about what is writing the code for why your life is unfolding the way that it is. Why is the material world shaping itself around you the way that it is? What is writing that code? Because if you think about it, every single thing in life has a pattern behind it. And once you understand what those patterns are and how they can be used to structure your physical life, then there's room for a lot of really profound change to take place, personal mastery. And again, it goes back to awareness being that first step. So once you have that level of awareness, you're willing to go within and really just observe your day, observe your thoughts. The next stage of awareness is observation, and the next stage of observation is, what are the patterns? So you're looking for things that come up. When you look at the manifestation of even the biology, there's a really great book that Dr. Bruce Lipton wrote called The Biology of Belief. And he talks about how your inner world, the inner environment, your beliefs, your thoughts, your attitudes, the way that you have allowed yourself to feel, or the feelings that you've allowed yourself to sit down in, that stuff is shaping your DNA. It's shaping how your physical body manifests itself into physical form. And this is how the whole world works. The whole world manifests into physical form based on the patterns of energy. So it's important to maybe have an awareness and understanding. But if you go over to my website, greatlifegreaterimpact.com, and you subscribe to that website and get access to the videos there, there's a lot of videos in there on body reading and how to read what is your body saying to you and about you, so that you can get to the root of why these patterns keep showing up in your life and in your body. So what are the beliefs and the emotions and the cycles and the patterns, and what are you here to learn from ultimately those things? Okay, moving on. So that was the observation stage, number 5. Number 6 is the self-mastery. This is where self-mastery, I feel like, once you've developed that awareness and the ability to observe your life and yourself and the patterns, now you can overcome. Now you're in a place where you can ascend. And ascension happens at a more rapid rate, I believe, when all of these other elements for application are in play. So that is the self-mastery phase. And that's really, I didn't really say a whole lot there, but man, there's so much that can happen there in that self-mastery phase, because at that level of awareness, anything is possible for you. You can literally restructure, redo, remodel your whole life and your whole paradigm. So I do believe that this self-mastery, this is what the whole reason for having this class today is about, spiritual awakening through self-mastery. So I don't want to just skip over that step, but there it is nonetheless. And then I feel like step number 7 for application, the application phase is this is a time for humble reflection. So once you've had that awareness and you've done the observation and you've looked at patterns and now you're willing to make some changes in your life, this is a time to get humble. This is a time to have humble communication with God, asking good questions and seeking for support from God, from the divine, in order to help you clear out what's blocking you from making more conscious changes in your life. This is a time to ask the right questions, and you'll start to move in new directions. You'll start to exercise your free will. You'll start to have impulses and intuitions that will pull you in a specific direction. This is a time where you respond to free will impulses from Christ to help support you through those moments of self-mastery. And so I do believe that this humility stage is also a stage or an aspect of the application where you can really start to develop that relationship of trust with God and with the divine. Okay, so in wrapping up this application phase, I feel like this was a really, really important phase, and it's why we took so much time talking about it. But in wrapping up this phase, I just want to end with this last quote that says, "It's not about what you do in this life. It's more about the state of consciousness in which you're doing it." I want to repeat that because I think this is really important. It's not about what you do in this life. It's more about the state of consciousness in which you are doing it. How present are you? How unconscious are you when you're walking about your daily life or engaging with other people? What we do and how we do it, and then it's about what we do and how we do it. And the way that we show up to that doing is affected by how we show up in our subtle body and our physical body. So bring your spiritual perspectives with you into daily life and really strive to be present there and watch your life unfold in magical and more amazing ways. Again, going through all these hardships and these challenges and the self-discovery and self-awareness, it does take effort. It takes energy. It takes a lot of thought energy. So it does take a bit of exertion to go through this, but this is the whole point for us being on this planet. There is nothing more important that we could be doing on this earth than this work of ascending and overcoming and awakening to who we actually are. So let's go on to the sixth phase, which is the receiving phase. This is where now you've been humbled. You've developed that relationship of trust with God. You've become a lot more aware, a lot more observant, a lot more intuitive. You're paying attention. You're much more present because you've been jolted into having to be by life. So now you're in a place where you can open up to the various unfoldings that life will bring you. And, one of the things that we teach over in Great Life, Greater Impact, when we have our healing sessions together, or when I work one-on-one with my clients, often I'll teach them how to open up the various chakra or energy centers in the body so that they can become more receptive. And what is the reason for opening yourself up to be more receptive? The purpose of that is so that you can communicate through the veil and receive downloads from God and receive intuition, inspiration, communication, guidance for the next right step that's in front of you. And this happens, I feel like one of the most powerful energy centers for us to open up is the heart. When your heart center is open up and you've unleashed a lot of those blockages and you've addressed and you've cleared your body and your mind, and you've opened up to greater levels of receiving through the veil, this is pure spiritual awakening. This is where you can absolutely trust the information that's coming into you more than any other information in your life. You can't really trust the news. You've learned, hopefully by now you've learned that you can't really trust most humans, not even the authorities that want to lord over you. Even those people, many of them, are not telling you the truth about who they actually are. So, and we can't trust a lot of the systems and societies and authorities. And so if you can't trust any of that stuff outside of you, what's left? It's learning that the only thing that you can trust is God. And how do you access God? Within yourself. It's going within and putting yourself into that receptive state. Now, sometimes your higher self will force you into that receptive state because your higher self knows where you're going and it knows where it wants to go. It knows the learning that you came here to receive, and it's going to nudge you and jolt you into action. But that's not God punishing you. That's your higher self saying, hey, I signed up for this. I want to learn this. I know I need to learn this, and I need to experience it for my highest good. And by the way, God is going to support you through it. But you signed up through mutual consent. But this inner information that comes now that you're open and more clear and you've removed blockages, you've done your inner work and you've really tapped in and tuned in to your higher self and to the voice and the mind and the will of God. Now you're ready to receive, which then leads us to the balance phase. The balance phase is where all ascension practices need to be balanced out with a grounding practice. So my teachers taught me if you want to go up, meaning ascend spiritually, you have to go down. If you want to go in, you can also go out. So it's interesting how when I teach people how to get centered, I'll take them on a journey inside of their physical body. So we go within and we introspect. But once we're there, then we push our light out and we expand out. So once you've connected to your inner self and your higher self and God, that's when you do the reach out. That's when you start giving, loving, sharing, serving, and being present with others and impacting the world. It's why I named my company Great Life, Greater Impact, because as you go within and create your great life from within, now you can push that light out and expand out. So there is a healthy balance that comes from within and without, and comes from ascending up by going down into the dark night of the soul. So the energies that flow up need to equally be flowing and anchoring down. So you'll notice that when I help you get into a centered state, I take you all the way to the base of the spine, sometimes even under your feet. And so from that anchored place where you're grounded and rooted and balanced and stable, now the energies can travel up that center channel, that center column, into higher levels of consciousness, to put you in a place where you can receive from the divine intuitively and through a revelatory process. I think one of the main reasons that balance is so important is because if you try to force a spiritual awakening by using drugs or medication or whatever you're trying to do to force your crown chakra to open up, you can go into psychosis. So people who want to be more psychic or clairvoyant or have spiritual gifts, if they try to force that stuff into awakening without being balanced and rooted and stable and grounded and present in their body, you can actually cause some severe mental illness if you're not ready for that. And so I think this is also a really, really important aspect of our spiritual awakening journey. This is one of the things I believe that shows spiritual maturity, is when you're willing to be in a balanced place. When your emotions go off, do you regulate them by going within your body and honoring those emotions and working through them and clearing out all the gunk? Or do you go eat a bag of chips? Right? Or do something to numb yourself or numb the emotions. Depending on how you respond to what life is showing you or throwing at you is showing the level at which your maturity is at, your spiritual maturity is at. So I think that this 7th phase is a very important phase, but it's also a way to discern where people are at on their spiritual journey. Are they balanced? Are they rooted? Are they stable? Or are they all over the map with their emotions and their thoughts and their beliefs and do they live in a place of chaos? Do they numb themselves in order to manage emotions? These are all things that you can watch for, not just so you can judge people, but so that you can be aware for your own self. Where are you at? Moving forward. This is one of my favorite stages of spiritual awakening, is the moving forward stage. Moving forward this is our last stage of spiritual awakening. And I think, again, all of these stages are so profound and so purposeful and so amazing. But as you have awakened, or you've woken up to truths, higher levels of truth, and you can go through all of these phases many times in your life, and you can circle back around to a lot of these stages and phases many times in your life. Just know that this isn't a linear experience. But as you wake up and you've purged the old identity through the dark night of the soul, now your life purpose shows up. And now you shift from serving and healing yourself to serving and healing other people. When you do that, you're going to discover a higher calling, a life's purpose, maybe as a light worker or a healer or a servant to the greater good. You feel a mission and a calling leading and guiding you to give and to help and to serve in a greater way and make a great impact on the lives of other people that you love. You cannot force this stage of moving forward. It's something that will automatically and organically just show up for you. And it comes to you as you learn how to surrender. But as we wake up and we start to purge and let go and we discover our gifts and talents and our mission, what you find as you move forward is that you begin living in the present, eternal, infinite now. You operate in flow. You live in harmony with your own inner spiritual truth. You're applying your learning and you are comfortable with where you're at, and you can just calmly just be. Doing is a byproduct of your authentic being. This is a time in life where you live in harmony with the universe because you recognize that you are the universe. You experience oneness with God and nature and creation and all that is within the universe as your light occupies the expanse of it all. You see yourself in everything. You experience unity, consciousness, and awareness as you step into the flow of allowing your life to unfold without trying to brute force your way through. Intuition guides you, and who you be governs what you do. Things, people, opportunities, they start to unfold to you spontaneously to support you. Like, this is where miracles and synchronicity happens and serendipity and all of those wonderful alignments start to take place to support you and to show you, hey, guess what? You're on the right road. Keep moving forward. This is the stage in life where the light within you begins to shine through you. And it no longer needs any validation from the outside world. It just leads you down paths that are more fulfilling. So you may see a change in jobs or a shift in relationships, or you might stand more sovereign in your personal power as your new identity comes forward and you step into harmony with who you are and what you're here to give. This is the place where you've dropped the lies of powerlessness and I'm not enough and all that mental chatter. You don't need anything outside you to complete you or save you. You are actively living in your full power. What stage are you in today? And as you work your way through the phases and stages of spiritual awakening, who do you get to be now? I want you to ask that question. At the beginning of this class, we asked the question, why am I here? As you start looking at the times in your life where you've come through many dark night of the soul experiences and catalysts and opportunities to become more aware and more observant and to apply the knowledge and to develop trust in God. How many times have you been through these cycles of spiritual awakening? And when you come through them and you start to see the meaning and the purpose in it and the way that it drives you to help serve and love on others, now who do you get to be? Well, I would submit you get to be you. Every time I work with my clients and we clear out some of the gunk that's keeping them stuck and holding them hostage in their lives, and they don't know how to move forward and they don't know why they're stuck and they don't know how to observe, often we'll go into the body, clear out this gunk pretty quickly and effortlessly, and I'll say to them, who do you get to be now? And I almost 100% of the time, people will say, I get to be me. I get to just be. That is the end of that. Any comments, any questions, any, how can we get more people to come and show up to these, to these classes? I really want you guys to kind of ponder and think if you're getting benefit from coming weekly, being here with one another together in this way. If this is helpful for you, if you feel so inclined to share this with someone that you care about, and if you think that this could help them through their dark night of the soul or through whatever it is that they're going through, and they feel alone and scared and afraid, and they're asking you a million questions as to, what do I do? Where do I go? What am I supposed to? Please share this information with them if you think that it could help them or benefit them in any way, as we're all on the same path. And that is the path that leads to our relationship with God. We have help through the veil on the other side. We have so much more help than we even know. And so a big part of, I think for me, the big part of being on this earth is to learn how to fight these spiritual battles that we find ourselves in, to learn how to get good tools to help us navigate and how to fight these battles, but also to learn how to develop trust with our Creator and our Maker and our Mentor. The ones who love us the most are the ones who are going to guide us back in towards ourselves, back home to the kingdom, which is within. So that's my main takeaway from today. Is there anybody who has anything they'd like to share, or is there anyone who would be willing to be vulnerable and send us out with a prayer?
I feel like I need to just because I don't want to, I told you, Janet, this morning I was feeling, but I feel in my spirit that I need to pray us out. But I want to piggyback on what you said, because that was the perfect prayer. What you just said was the perfect prayer. So I'll guide us out in prayer if you'd like for me to.
I'd love that.
Okay. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Thank you, Holy Spirit. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Heavenly Father. Thank you for our commander, Jesus. And thank you for that spirit. Thank you for Janet. Thank you for this platform, because I do come every Tuesday expectant in what you're doing. Thank you for the wisdom that you have given Janet for us and our spiritual growth. And help us, Father, help us to continue to let us move forward on our path. Help us to learn and grow in you and through you in ourselves. Help us with our emotional resiliency and our spiritual awakening, and help us change our faulty belief patterns, and reframe us to the perfect will that you have for our blueprint, our individual blueprint that you have for each one of us. God, we thank you. Thank you for your protection. Thank you for your provision. Thank you for your truth that connects us in the word and the truth and the kingdom. Lord, align us to your truth and your love. We love you. We thank you. It's in Jesus' name I pray all of these things. Amen.
Amen. I'm just going to sit in the beauty of those words. Thank you. I do think that one of your gifts is the ability to pray and the ability to communicate with your maker. So thank you for sharing that.
So that's what makes it hard when I feel like we get blocked and I'm like, I need you now all the time. Everybody does, I know.
Yeah. Thank you for your vulnerability. Just, you guys, everybody, thank you for being here. And again, just, there's so much work and effort that goes into pulling off these classes and then putting them on YouTube and doing the handouts and all the things and the presentations. And I do it because I love this work and I love God and I'm doing it for him. But if you feel that anyone else in your life could benefit from this, I urge you to share these opportunities, share the invites, tag a friend, share the replays, whatever it takes to get these messages, because I do feel that the messages do come purely straight from him. Through us. And I know many of you didn't get to participate a lot this time around, and I'm sorry for that. Next week's going to be better. We're going to open it up and give you guys opportunities to share. But I just really felt like there was a lot of content today that just needed to be put out there. So there you go. And yes, there probably likely will be a handout, but it might not come for a couple days. All right. Have a blessed rest of your day, you guys. I love you all tremendously. And I'm just grateful that you're here. Take care. Mwah. Bye. Thanks for being willing. I love it when you guys are raw and open and vulnerable and willing to participate, willing to pray. It's awesome when you do that, and I really appreciate it. Okay. All right, that's enough of you.
We're good. I can hear you. I'm just trying to get ready. Yeah. I know whenever I first started, there was a lot. I feel like, I feel like, let me get my words. Do you feel like it's a refining? I just feel like there's a refining, like that they'll come back of, like they know we're here.
Yeah.